AMPspire. Hey, hey, hey. How are y'all doing today? This is AMPspire Interviews. I am your host, Plum Queen, and we are blessed with focused minds, educational groups. Say hey, ladies.
Good morning. Good morning.
Emily, your mic is muted, so we cannot hear you.
Yeah, I got you. Hi, good morning. I'm here.
Hey, ladies. Thank y'all for your time and your energy today.
No
How y'all
problem.
doing?
Thank you for having me.
How's your rising so
I'm
far?
well.
It's
Awesome.
very good so far. I must add. How about you?
I am awesome with the sauce on it. I cannot wait to tell these folks about what y'all got going on. You know what I'm saying? I cannot wait. So we're gonna get into it. Well, first of all, I met Emily, you know what I'm saying, learning in an ETP class. We learning, we growing out here in these streets, trying to get these businesses
Yes.
popping. So, I told you guys I love networking, I love collaborating, and I found this sister with her other sister who's not her sister. You know what I'm saying? But they're doing amazing education, so I had to bring them on here. So tell us who you are, where y'all from, and we'll take it from there.
Well, I'm originally here from Atlanta. And me and Tanisha actually met working in a Metro Atlanta school district back in 2013. At that time, a funny quick little story. I was on maternity leave, hadn't quite met her yet, heard a lot about her, didn't meet her. And then upon my return, she was out of work due to some situations that happened at the school. So I finally got to meet her when she came to work about a week later, and we just instantly clicked. We had the same passion and drive to support our students, to help our students. And so our relationship just really manifested and grew from that point. In that particular time, we were faced with some challenges dealing with some students who were going through some crises and some traumas, and just trying to figure out some ways to support them academically as they were going through these particular issues. And so Tanisha came up with a plan, seemed like a very awesome plan, and it worked. We would spend our lunchtime really just focusing on supporting those students, giving them that extra help. And so after a few years, we thought, like, we need to do this full time. This needs to be something that we really do, and use this work to help other educators. So Focus Minds EDU was born initially to do instructional support services. But as we began to go through our own lived experiences with trauma and living through that, it was very evident that the teachers and the adults needed this information as well, and trying to figure out how to also support them through their mental health crisis they may be going through.
That is amazing.
So
That is amazing.
fast forward to today, we consider ourselves teacherpreneurs. I am Tanisha Thomas. I am not originally from Atlanta, but I am from a small city, East Chicago, Indiana, in the Midwest. But I've been in the South for the past 20 years. And like Emily said, collectively, we have provided our services here in Metro Atlanta. And since 2018, we have expanded our services to the Southeast region of the United States, where we were providing our professional learning services, teaching educators how to use literacy to build skills and heal. So thank you so very much for having us and allowing us to share with you today.
Yes.
No, thank y'all, because this is awesome. This is the stuff that I be trying to talk about. Like, we just ended our childhood trauma podcast, you know what I'm saying, about an hour ago. So yeah, this really ties in because, our children are taught by adults. And most of them parents are dealing with their own issues from their childhood. And now you're raising children, and it's almost like they're left out. You have to now have it all together to help your kids. But how you going to do that if you don't know how to deal with your own issues and things of that nature? So this is
Power
extremely
of self-awareness. Yes.
Yes.
Power of self
powerful.
is
I
real.
love y'all for that. Y'all need to be.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with, you guys are authors. You have a book.
Yes.
Yes, this book is called Is Your School an Asset? Now, asset is an acronym. What does that mean?
So you want to tell me? Okay.
Well, I'll just say this. Well, like I said, in 2018, we started our services and we were able to travel to different school districts and provide these professional learning opportunities to educators. And then, of course, when we were all hit with the collective trauma of the pandemic, that was an opportunity for us to grow and pivot. And we were able to then decide, how can we prepare a package or a product if we can't go to the schools right now? How can this information still be delivered in an easy to use framework that anyone can pick up and implement right there? So therefore, we created Asset. Is your school an asset? So take it away, Emily, and let them know what it means.
All right. So asset, of course, just the, the definition of what that is, it's definitely, we wanted to create something to try to bring that awareness. Is your school valuable? Does it bring value to its community? Is it bringing value to those parents, students, faculty, and staff? And so asset, essentially, the A stands for adult SEL. So we focus on the adult social emotional learning and making sure those adults, as you were stating, are they regulated? How are you feeling when you come to work? Do you feel valued while you're at work, or your ideas and your expertise as an educator, is that being valued and respected? The second S is going to stand for school climate and culture. And that is making sure that, is your school climate a positive one? Is that a positive learning environment that students are able to walk into? Or do parents feel welcome? Do your stakeholders and community members feel welcome to come in? Because you can tell a lot about a school by the amount of support that they have within the community. So are people coming into that school, pouring in and trying to support those kids? The next S is for student voice and agency. We're very big on this generation. They want to be heard. No longer are you going to silence them and tell them, what I said is what I said. They want that explanation, and they want the opportunity to share their voice. And so we want to make sure they have that experience, to have set out those times within the day, within the school, that they can share how they feel and share their voice. And it, in some aspect, help to shift and change the culture. E is for equity and engagement. Are your practices equitable for everyone? Are your policies and procedures and processes within that school building, are they equitable for everyone? We want to make sure there's not a hierarchy, or there are students who are feeling left out or marginalized in a sense, because either what they look like or what they believe. I mean, it's in that totality. And the engagement piece, how are you engaging them when they come into your classroom as an educator? How are they being engaged in your lessons? How are you starting your lessons? That's a very huge factor in that motivation piece, and to keep them engaged in that room. And the last one is teaching and learning. And that essentially is just for the entire building. How are you going about the business, in a sense, of teaching and learning? Are you building those smaller learning communities within that staff, within that building? Are you doing that cross-curricular? We talk about kind of, if you have that math class who is working on those word problems, because that's really big right now in math. My fourth grader is coming home, with this homework, doing the math problems. How can you translate that then into the English classroom? Can these prompts be science-based? So making sure you're having those opportunities for collaboration and creating those learning environments as well. So that's asset. Is your school an asset? Is your school doing all of those things?
I ain't been to school in a while, and I'm gonna keep it real. Here in Macon, Georgia, none of these schools are doing that. None of these. I don't have children, but I remember when I first moved down here for the second time, I lost my arm. So this was in 2007.
Okay.
My mom came down here, and she brought her two sons with her, and they started going to Appleton Junior High or something like that. So as a school not too far from me.
Okay.
Their grade level of whatever they were doing was 3 grades below. So then, compared to what they were learning when they were living in New York. I just saw somebody post something about how their teacher brought home, the daughter was supposed to identify what an antonym, the antonym of vegetable is, or something like that. and the mother tried to help the daughter, and the answer that she gave, which actually made sense, was wrong. And then I, in turn, looked up the word antonym, and it has actually nothing to do with vegetables. Like, how do you even find the antonym to a vegetable? Like, what does see exactly? Now, I ain't been in school in a long time. I'm not an educator at all. You know what I'm saying? At all, okay? But
that was funny. I'm
It
sorry.
is funny.
now
It's
this,
funny, but it's also
saddening, disheartening to
it
know
is
that there's
disheartening.
an
It is disheartening.
intentionality of identifying the true skill that is needed. And it isn't easy. It's simple, but it isn't easy. Teaching is a beautiful, wonderful profession that people think is very simple, but it isn't easy.
It's an
It
art.
takes someone, it is, and it's a craft and it's a calling, and it's something that you build the skill if you don't have it. But sometimes as educators, that person who planned that lesson may not be as vulnerable to receiving the information to grow as that instructor or facilitator of that student's learning, to honestly be deliberate and intentional. What is the overall goal? Where are you going with this idea that the antonym and vegetable matter right now to at the end of the class? Where are we putting that into the curriculum right now? How important that is. It's so important for them to be intentional.
now I'm gonna
And
ask.
the truth,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say the truth is again, I don't know, it's probably some feelings, but just because you're a good test taker doesn't mean you're a good teacher. Some people are really good at passing tests and memorizing information.
Hmm?
But
Me.
teaching and being around students is an art. And that's an art of learning how to build relationships, learning how to be
Mhm.
vulnerable. It's people skills, it's communication skills. And there are a lot of very smart and intelligent teachers. They're intelligent, top of their class. However, some of them lack the emotional intelligence and patience to work with students. And that's where you have the disconnect, because then you have some people that have the passion to work with kids who don't necessarily have the credentials to be a teacher, but because they don't have those credentials, they're not in the classroom. And I know a lot of districts right now, due to the teacher shortage, are looking at other ways of retaining and bringing people into the profession who may normally not have been looked at as an educator, and trying to groom them and get them prepared, right, for the academic piece of it. Because let's face it, it's a data driven organization. That's what school is. They want to see the numbers. um, and so when you're talking about an educator who is teaching them something that doesn't necessarily align or make sense, it just brings that to mind. Like, how do you help them in that aspect? Because they clearly want to be there, but how do you help them reach those goals that have been set by that district or by that school when it relates to student achievement? So it's it's a task, and they need leaders in those buildings, essentially, who are paying attention to that. And that's where we come in too, because we want to
Mhm.
talk to those leaders and go to these schools and see, how are you building them up? How are you preparing your teachers and educators for this
Mhm.
role, especially if you want them to stay there and you want them to remain in that building and not switch and transfer, because you get a lot of that too. So
Okay,
it's a
so
situation.
y'all the experts. So I got my own thoughts about what should and shouldn't do. So you let me know. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? If I'm going in the right direction. Okay, so my thing, when you talk about having people with empathy and understanding. So I personally feel that the teachers in schools, they need to be from the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do believe that Black children should be taught by, you know what I'm saying, by Black teachers. Just off the strength, not because of so much segregation, but they understand their children. They
Hmm.
were those kids. So they understand the environment that they're coming from. They understand that possibly that their parents may not be educated, or, you know what I'm saying, have a very toxic environment when these children
Mhm.
come to school. So they are better equipped emotionally, like you said, to help them or give them the extra help that they may possibly need. It's harder to do that when you don't resonate, when you're just showing up
Mm-hmm.
to do the lesson and to, make sure you get the numbers right, make sure that this percentage of your classroom is, getting these type of scores, instead of actually figuring out how to get to everyone, to how to touch each student, because everybody's different. Like you said, I'm that person. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
visual learner. When I was in school, especially when I got to high school and junior high school, I just learned just enough so I can regurgitate it back, so I can get that B plus or an A. You know what I'm saying, on a test, and then
Mm-hmm.
after I get the grade, I don't remember anything.
Mm.
Didn't retain none of that information. I passed the test though. The
Mhm.
numbers were right, but I didn't learn anything. You know what I'm saying?
Um, so me and Tisha talk about this all the time, and I just want to clarify just one thing where my personal belief, and it's a little different.
Mhm.
I actually went to a school growing up from elementary on up to high school, to be honest, that was predominantly white.
Mhm.
So most of my teachers were white. Most of my environment, I was considered at that time to be a minority. And so here in Atlanta, we had the M to M program. The minority to majority is actually what they called it. And I was bused from my city, which was an hour away, to this school. Now, my mom was an educator, so let me throw that in there. She was an educator, so I was able to go to whatever school in the district that I wanted to go. She felt at that time that this particular school would give me better opportunities. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so in that, what I did learn from being in that particular situation and being in that environment is that it's not about what you look like. It's about your lived experiences. I had teachers who I could tell, and now thinking back on it, were going through some personal things in their lives. They didn't look like me. Um, and a lot of the students, I remember we had an immigrant student that came in from Ethiopia, and my English teacher, who was white, would have me and her together. So at that time, Miss Enon was her name. She would teach us for me to collaborate and help and support. So I've always been like in a supportive role. So I think that you don't have to necessarily be from that neighborhood, but I think that empathy is something that can be taught, which is why the
Mhm.
SEL piece is so important. If you are in schools where empathy is not being taught and is being this for self mindset,
Mhm.
then that's exactly what you're going to get. So I don't necessarily think you have to be from the neighborhood to teach at that school. But I do think if you aren't from that neighborhood, what you need to do is do a better job of getting to know the students that are in your classroom from that neighborhood, and making sure that's why that student voice and agency piece is
Yes.
important, because you need to know their story. And you may not know everything that happened to them, but if you can just get some tidbits, and that's why we talk about using literacy to build skills and heal. We were English teachers. And so we would have those opportunities where you can tell that short story. I used to have kids, again, tying it into the literature we were reading, but I used to have kids actually make poems. We would do raps. We called it Freestyle Fridays. Like,
Oh.
that's when you kind of get to know who you have in the room, and it's just a different perspective, if you will, versus
I agree.
ascribing certain characteristics to a child because they're from a particular place. And
Mhm.
so that's just not the same experience. I think Tanisha can tell you about her experience is absolutely different as well. So
All right,
Mine is
Felicia,
different as
well,
well. Growing up in the Midwest, my city was one high school, 3,500 students in the high school, what they would consider gang infested, survival of the fittest. And the majority of our teachers were also white. Not to say that there weren't Black educators there were, but from middle school to high school, the majority of my teachers were white people. And they taught me how to just simply using their curriculum, because they knew the area where I was from, projects, one way in, one way out, 4 streets. They were allowing me to use my imagination. They were allowing their curriculum, their content to let me see myself in a different light. Like I was able to have representation through the text that they were using, or learn, wow, what is really going on in an Ayn Rand book. Like when my 11th grade teacher put this in front of me, I'd never heard of this before. And it just opened my eyes to so many different things, that if that was able to be done for me, this is why I decided to do and become an educator, to share this with other people. And it tugs at my teacher heart, because it is really, really full circle for us, because it truly is a lived experience that literacy does build skills and heal.
It absolutely
And
does.
that's why we're doing it today.
Well, I appreciate y'all, and that's one of the reasons why y'all need to come to make it. Because, like I said, I'm so serious with all the laughter. Like you say, literacy. Because, like me growing up, I grew up in New York, Queens. I grew up in projects. Now, my elementary school was in a worse projects. Now, you know what I'm saying, not too far, but the whole staff was black. Our principal was a man from Barbados, Dr. Roach. You know what I'm saying? Miss Madden was our was our vice principal. All of the school aides. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't up until the third grade that I actually had a white teacher.
Wow.
And she was a Jewish woman. And she loved me. I don't know if it's the whole Holocaust slavery thing. You could have swore that woman before I was a child. And she was tall, super duper white, red hair, and
Wow.
she just loved me. She actually told my mom that I should be put in the tag program, because back when I was in school, they had talented and gifted program. So she enrolled me in all that good stuff. So I've actually had good experiences as far as what education goes. It's really the curriculum is when I started having a problem, because it's, once you get to junior high school and high school, you start honestly realizing this stuff doesn't work with life. You know what I'm saying? It kind of gets boring. The curriculum is boring. It's not stimulating. So it's like, and that's why it's so easy to be distracted, because you're kind of teaching the stuff that's really irrelevant.
Well, and that's perspective, and that goes back to the very thing that we do, because it doesn't have to be boring. It can be engaging. And so the equity and engagement piece, let me tell you, I'll be honest, I hated Shakespeare when I was in school. Hated learning about it, didn't care for the language, all of it. It was just like, I didn't want to do it. It actually wasn't until I became a teacher that it became fun for me, because it was, again, it's an art, it's a skill, right? I had to figure out a way, how do I make this experience for them different from the experience that I had? What can I do to engage them in this text? And also not only teach them these themes, because it's really about theme, teach them these themes, then so it is applicable to real life. So, and that kind of goes inside with our 4 R's. Every lesson should be relevant in some way, right? So, prime example, we would teach Julius Caesar. Me and Tish was talking about this the other day about how fun that is, because I would love to go into the classroom right now and just teach that unit, because that's my favorite. But Julius Caesar has this theme of betrayal in it. And the way I would draw those kids in is really by bringing that up. How do you feel when your friend betrays you? If everyone has had a situation in their lives where they've had a friend or family member, for that matter, depending on what area you're in, that has betrayed them in some way, right? And having that conversation and opening that door, automatically they're like, oh, I want to know who betrayed who, right? And how did they get there? So we talk about the haters, all the people who plot and, trend, really they did. It was a plot. They were some haters. They wanted Caesar out, right? Because he was too ambitious. That's another thing. How does it feel when you have all this ambition, right? You want to move forward. You think you're doing something good for the people. You think you're out here go wrong, right? And there's some other
And then
people
et tu,
behind
Brute?
your back telling you you're too ambitious, you're doing too much, in other words. So they are relevant. A lot of those things, Shakespeare is very relevant to today. It just depends on, again, who's the teacher that's giving the perspective.
How you represent? And I appreciate that. You
And
like,
what
I
skills
don't,
they have. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I also believe it's the skill set and how you're delivering that instruction.
absolutely.
To be honest, instruction is the intervention. If you are going to reach and meet any kid to unlock and unblock something, it has to happen through your instruction. But if you are not, again, aware of the intent behind the standard that you are teaching and connecting those tough topics to that standard so that you are able to discuss those lived experiences of betrayal and jealousy and all of those things, or divorce or tragedy or anything of that nature that has to do with something that impacts how you feel, it comes through your instruction. So that curriculum really does matter. So we can teach any teacher how to use what you already have, but through, like Emily is saying, let's put a different perspective on it. Let's put these outside layers and add into what you're doing to start, strengthen, and sustain this so that you can not only yield those academic outcomes, but also support those behavioral health outcomes, that you don't have kids wilding out just because they can honestly think of, oh, I did read that poem and I can recite this poem to try to calm me down, or I can understand the breath work within a Shakespearean sonnet and how I have to stop, and it definitely will calm me down because that's just the nature of how it was written. But we can get it's so many layers to unpack on this onion because it's big. It's really, really big. And hopefully we can begin to share with more teachers nationwide.
if I
And it's
have
also about
it,
integrating, and don't get me wrong, even though you have that curriculum, again, like Tanisha is saying, you got to be intentional with that time, with that planning. So finding those supplemental texts that are relatable, right? And that's, I always used to pick nonfiction texts because I felt like that was not only, because again, not only are we talking about something that's real and relevant to you, but now I'm teaching you how to find those primary sources and figure out how these historical events then also impact society. So it was always twofold. So find those supplemental texts. We know back in the day, our parents and grandparents, they used to wait for that newspaper. And they waited for the newspaper to read the newspaper because they wanted to know what's going on in their community, in their town. So again, we got to kind of get back to that. The news itself, right, can have their own perspective. So we got to teach kids, and that's again another skill in ELA, is teaching them how to go through those sources of information and determine, the biases, right, in that text, and identifying those different literary elements so they can kind of use that in their day-to-day life. So
that is super dope. And like I was saying, if I have anything to do with that, I will definitely do my due diligence to help
we
y'all.
would love to come to Macon. Hey,
You
Macon.
have to. You have to. You have to. You don't understand. Like y'all have to, because like, and I'm not an educator. Yeah, I'm not an educator, but a lot of and this is kind of the collaborations that I want, because I don't know the politically correct stuff. Everything y'all saying is almost like my life. Like the way I learn is if you give me an example. If you can, I don't know, Emily, if you notice when I'm in class, you know what I'm saying? I needed an example of real life so it can actually compute. So now I know what you're talking about because it's relatable to something that I'm doing in real life. So that's exactly how I learn. I'm just not y'all to say it like that and put it in the program at workshops. So this is why I like to collaborate, you know what I'm saying, with people like y'all, because this is what's needed. So I may not be able to explain it right, but I can be the avenue to bring, you know what I'm saying, people like you to the people who need that.
Absolutely.
They're not gonna listen to
And
me,
we
but
appreciate you bridging
yeah,
that gap and putting it together because it is needed and we're here. We're ready.
yeah, yo, I mean,
It's a
I'm getting
community
goosebumps. Like I'm mad
approach.
excited. Like this is the stuff I get excited about. Like these are solutions to our problems because like we year in and year out
Yes.
we go through the same issues, and there's
Yes.
no, you know what I'm saying, tangible solutions. And I got
Mm,
some. So now the once y'all hit these schools, they ain't no excuses.
it's not.
Yeah,
And it's not
And
an
it's not.
excuse, but it's also it's a choice.
it
It's a
is
choice.
to
It's a
want to do
choice.
that. All right, so let's get
Exactly.
into these workshops. You talked about, you said the 4 R's. So you have
Mhm.
3 workshops that I've saw. I checked out your link tree. So the first one is 4 R's of equitable instruction. What is
Mhm.
that? And give us a little bit about what they will be learning if they took that workshop.
Well, our series is about, again, easy to use, actionable, research based, evidence based strategies that teachers can use to reach Gen Z and Generation Alpha. We know, again, that this generation is used to instant gratification. They can Google it to make sure that you're telling them the truth, that it's real. So those 4 R's is it's real, it's relevant, it's responsible, and responsive to who you are actually teaching. And I can't think of the last R. Emily, help me out here.
Relationships.
The
Learn
relationships.
relationships.
You have to build those relationships. That's the foundation of teaching and learning, is to
Mhm.
ensure, like right now we're headed back to school. Hopefully we are trying to secure and build those relationships that those students do want to come in and experience those other 3 components of our learning system.
Absolutely.
All right, 4 R's of equitable instruction. Okay, so can you give me a small example of what? Because like I said, you got to dummy it down for me.
I got
So
you.
yeah,
Well,
give
no,
me an example.
no, and it goes back to kind of everything that we just talked about. To be honest,
Mhm.
the relationship piece would be the relationship that you had with that teacher with the red hair. She built the relationship with you.
Miss Sonic, I'll never
Okay.
forget.
And you would exactly, so everybody has their favorite teacher. And Tanisha would like to say, like, who's your favorite teacher? And if somebody asks you that, that would be somebody that you can definitely pick up from your past. You're talking about third grade, you know what I mean? Um, and to remember that person means that she had an effect on you positively, that you would even bring her up. So she built that relationship. The
She
real part would then go back to what I was saying about the supplemental text that you can bring into your classroom. And by real, I mean real life, like making sure that what you're teaching them is something that they can then apply or they can identify in their own personal lives. The responsive piece is picking a text and being responsive, right? Trying to ensure that what you're reading is also, it's kind of twofold, right? So when I was talking about doing the Shakespeare and picking out those themes, I'm being responsive. In middle
Mhm.
school and high school, there are a lot of kids who are dealing with bullies and jealousy and these relationships that they get in, right? And so teaching it from that lens, a more responsive lens, and teaching them, how do you respond? I would oftentimes ask the question, what do you do and how do you respond when you feel like someone has betrayed you? Trying to deter some of those negative behaviors in a sense. I don't want you to have to go out there and fight them, but what is the way that you can now disengage with them and move forward and do what you need to do and not focus on necessarily the betrayal? Yes, it hurt, right? But then what now can I do? And the
I
last
love
part, as far as the relevance piece, that just goes back to making sure it's culturally relevant, right? And culturally relevant just might be some of the colloquialisms that you may use, that vernacular, you know what I mean? That may change depending on the area that you're in. How you're delivering that information can also be relevant, right? We're using that same text, just speaking on that. So those
okay.
would be the 4 R's.
Okay, awesome. All right, 4 R's of equitable instruction. Go on their link tree and you need to sign up for it. all
So
that. Mhm. All right. You also have something called pushing past your perspective. I might need to take that class because I'm very. Here's the thing. I'm very open-minded, and I do
Mhm.
believe I'm forever a student, but I am also I have my mind, I know what I know, and I have my feelings, and I'm very opinionated.
Mm.
So, if I know something to be true and what you telling me ain't penetrating, it is what it is. Ain't nothing you can say. That's what it is, you know what I'm saying, for me. But as I get older, I know that I'm a student. So especially
Mhm.
like I listen to y'all all day because I this is not my area of expertise. So y'all know what y'all talk about. I want to learn. But when I do know some things, I do have straightforward, this is my perspective. So I've been growing.
Oh, I don't know what happened.
Well, I'll just say that class was born out of the need in our supporting connections to the nonprofit um, area industry.
Mhm.
We support several different nonprofits with organizational resilience. And that was a piece that was asked of us to how do you support those people who are coming to work with various lived experiences and different perspectives as yourself, as you just stated, that are kind of strong willed. But then now you have to have some respect for the unknown for the next person, how to deal with that. So in this course, we explore those intersectionalities of your personality, how you connect, how you think versus how you were raised. Is that the only way? Is the right way? Is the best way? How do you look at other layers, that self-awareness, that
Mhm.
implicit bias? We talk about microaggressions, how those may come out. Your intent may not be to offend someone, but it was, in fact, it did, and now it impacted them in a way that you didn't intend for it to. So how do you even clean that up? What does that direct communication look like? So that particular class was created to help organizations to produce and have some wellness and resilience with their employees.
And so we do touch on the piece of, we call it the intersectionality. And there's a wheel that we kind of share and go around and talk about how all those different components, because we're human, everybody has those different layers, as Tanisha said, and you don't know what they are, and you may not ever know, and of course get to the deep and heart of who people really are, but having that respect um, is essential and important. I don't know what happened to her,
I
Tamara.
don't know. And I think the last class that we were going to share that she
The
wanted to
parenting
ask was our parenting class. And this class is a true hands-on class that teaches positive and responsive parenting for those who may have been exposed to trauma themselves, or their students, of course, or children have been exposed to trauma, specifically the collective trauma of the pandemic. How do you support them through this? How do you communicate with them? How do you calm yourself in a moment of angst or anxiety to support your student or your child in a time of need? So we have created that and shared that with a few agencies here in the South for their parents, and have had some awesome feedback with the responsiveness in implementing those strategies with their families, and how it has changed their perspective and how they look at interactions and relationship building with themselves and their children.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not just, honestly, it says parenting workshop, but it's really for adults. I mean, how do you communicate, and some of those characteristics and strategies that you can
That's true.
also use within your community um, to talk. So it looks like she has had some technical difficulties. She did send me a message. Um,
Okay.
the one last thing, though, that we'll share, I don't know if she's able to get back on,
Okay.
is our workbook. We'll just
Technology is
talk
great.
about the workbook. Show the workbook. Here it is.
Congratulations.
Is your school an asset? Yes. And we are on the back, just so you know which one you're getting. But this particular book it really opens up with, having that conversation. Is your school, I don't know if you can really see this, or
No,
is it,
not really.
all right, is your school happy? And
Mhm.
happy essentially is your school highlighting the awareness, prevention, and intervention strategies as it relates to mental health awareness and
Mhm.
equitable instruction. So our happy kind of stands for something different here. But that adult SEL piece is definitely where we start. And it's a workbook. Like you can go through this workbook literally. If you're a first year teacher, a veteran teacher, it's for everybody.
Leaders, yes. If you want
Leaders,
to include that mindfulness piece, the mental
all the
health
mindfulness.
awareness and wellness, it is here. This is your ground zero. This
Mhm.
is where we suggest you should start if you are ready to your future focus and you're ready to support students who have perhaps dealing with some mental health conditions or have been exposed to trauma. What are those ready to use practical skills that are easy within reach that you can add into the day-to-day routines that you are doing in your schools and in
Mhm.
your classrooms? Is your school an asset? Is the resource that you should honestly be using to get you started to helping students to cope to cope better? What's that one? Mission
Mission
Possible. Yes,
possible.
Mission Possible.
What
Helping
is your
identify
mission?
those policies and procedures, helping you to create that resiliency plan that includes all, that is inclusive of all perspectives and voices within your school. How to design that. Absolutely.
We also provide some tech tools as well, um, that you may be able to use. Some you may have heard of before, but that's just a little part. Oh, she's back. Hi. Okay.
I didn't want to interrupt
Um,
y'all doing great. Y'all are awesome.
We tried.
Look, we was gonna fill it up. But lastly, we talked about equity engagement. Here's the piece just talking about who am I, understanding that we call it do the right thing. If you've seen Do the Right Thing, you from New York, so you already know that movie is still relevant today.
Spike Lee.
Um, Went over the
Yep.
4 R's already. So there again, it's just different talking about your SMART goals. What are your goals? If you're not talking about what the goals are for those students, for those kids, or in that building, then what are we doing, right? So there has to be some intentional stuff going on there where you have those conversations. Tanisha was leading those PLCs and creating those professional learning communities for years. So she's an expert in that. We talk about visual literacy, right? Using images to tell a story. You're a visual learner. So looking at an image and being able to tell that story, and build that deeper understanding, connecting that. Um, then at the end of it, we just have some terms to focus on. They're not all inclusive, of course, but there are some terms that may come up within this workbook, or terms that you just need to know just to be an asset, start having those conversations.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so, yeah, this was our baby. If you're an educator, you know how important it was to be able to copy pages and be able to flip that book back and copy on the copy machine. So we took that into account as well, because some of these pages you actually can make copies of and give them to your students. So there are pages in here
In the
not just for
back.
you as an educator, but if you don't want to mess it up, right, you can go ahead and make a copy of it, and it could be a lesson for the day, as well. Or if you're an instructional coach and you want to
Yep.
go through this, and that could definitely be an activity, as well, if you don't want to kind of mess up your book. So there's so many different things you can do with this book and learn. It's not long, right? I know a lot of times educators will get these 100-page books and we don't have that kind of time. You just don't, especially if it's not actionable and it's not a resource that you can use immediately. And so we're
Yep.
very intentional about making this something that you can go to class tomorrow if you wanted to and use these strategies.
Well, guess what?
Absolutely.
I'm not an educator, but me coming on here with these podcasts, I am teaching people things. At least what I'm attempting to do. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually going to get you guys books so that can help me on here. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I can be a better host, or you know what I'm saying, technically, I guess you would call me an educator from teaching
You
people.
are an educator, absolutely.
No,
Absolutely.
There are interactive interventions that you can apply in your day-to-day what you do. This helps everyone. It's
Especially that
no
first part, the adult SEL piece.
Mhm.
There's a section in there that actually it's a reflective piece and asks you to write there, right? Because that's the premise of what we do, right? Using literacy to build skills and heal. And so being able, we talk a lot about writing those things down, manifesting them, how you talk to yourself, that positive self-talk, that growth mindset, all of those
Affirmation.
things. And just being intentional with that. And so it's definitely, again, it is for educators in a sense, most of the book, but that first part is adults. It's essentially looking at you as an adult to say, okay, let me reflect on this, and then come back to be present, right? To be present and be there, and be a better, better host or whatever the case may be, but just being understanding that maybe there's somebody you might be talking to. Now they might have gone through something and maybe it's not personal. So you never know.
I'm definitely going to purchase me one. So I'm trying to be.
But you're doing a great job, by the way. So I don't know.
Saying that because I sure be doing my due diligence. So I don't know if you guys talked about the other workshops after our little debacle.
Oh, we did. We brought the parenting workshop. Yep, we talked about that. I think that was the only other one. You get a 4 R's and pushing past your perspective in the parenting workshop. I will add one more though, because and I'll talk about everything going on in the world today and these restaurants and hospitality industry. So we have pivoted a little bit into that lane and started trainings with different restaurants, hotels, just really going into the hospitality industry. We don't want to see anybody die over cold fries. That's just, or you're not making my sandwich at the Subway the right way. That just should not happen. Like it was devastating to us. So just talking to those people in the hospitality industry about how to respond when you have a customer who's clearly going through something. So those de-escalation strategies, just that communication, right? How that communication piece is critical and is key. And making sure that you have a staff that is equipped with that information and those practices that they can implement them while they're there, because it's going to happen. People are going through things. Like, you don't know what the next person's going through. You have no clue. Correct. But if you can be empathetic and respond in a different way, right? Instead of matching that energy, which is probably the worst advice I can give you. You don't have to match that energy. You don't have to. That's a choice. No one can provoke you or push you into snapping. That's a choice that you make every day.
So. Yes, Professor Meeks. Yes, tell them. Because I tell people that all the time. No one makes you do anything. If whatever that person says or does makes you angry, you've made yourself something clearly that bothers you in some type of way. And to be quite honest, it's something in you that you may need to change and why that's bothering you. Because they just said something or did something.
But and I like how you said the you, because hard work is the hard work. We're working on something to share that, and you have to be very vulnerable and be in the place to accept what is the real true work that you have to do. So those triggers won't be triggers again. Well, you won't spiral out as much if and when you are triggered. But again, you have to be vulnerable and willing to accept there are some things that I may have to work on first in order for me to be able to help you. So that's one thing that we consider. Hard work is the hard work. And
hard work is the hard work.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to quote y'all. Now, my photo is going to be my photo, but I'm going to quote y'all in that. I'm going to put your hashtag on. Put your tag on.
We're working on something with that.
We are working on something with it. So stay tuned. That will happen. So, and we would love the people in your community to also join. And that's definitely something we can talk about offline for that, because I think that everybody has a story. And your
Much needed.
story is a powerful
I even
story.
got an idea y'all having y'all own podcast on my network because the conversations y'all absolutely and segue to folks to get you no seriously because these are the conversations that need to be had and I'm not the expert in this. So it's but so much talking around this that I can do. Yeah. And again, I have my own perspective. I can only go by what I know and my experiences. You know what I'm saying? So I technically come from a student because I'm not I'm not an official educator. So I'm coming based off of my experience as a student and things of that nature. So we need that other perspective. And somebody else need to be talking on here. So yeah, let's talk about all of that because this is amazing. Like this is what I want. Like financial literacy of all kinds. That's the type of programming, I'm saying, that I want. And yeah, y'all, and then y'all beautiful
We
too.
love that.
Yeah, I got the
I see you with your purple on too. We love the purple.
yes.
Like, she got our colors. We're supposed to be together.
Today is the Comedic Day Thursday, so you're supposed to wear purple on this day. Actually.
Oh, okay. That's dope.
Yeah, today is the day of Patah, so we're supposed to wear purple on Thursday. So it just went along. We focused.
We are
focused minds on here,
and we didn't know that. See, that's some things that we can learn because those are things that I don't know.
Well, this collaboration is going to be continuous. We're going to all the way out. I love
that.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you ladies go. Tell everyone where to find y'all.
Oh, that's all, Emily.
All right, Emily. So you're gonna be the solo spot. There you go.
We are on all platforms at Focus Minds EDU. You can find a link on our website at www.focusedmindsedugroup.com to all of our courses. Book a free focus chat with us. We'd love to talk to you. And all of our information is there. And if you have any questions, feel free. Follow us on Instagram at Focus Minds EDU. You can scan the QR code right here to connect with all of our socials and save us on Hi Hello.
Hello. All right. So awesome. I really appreciate you guys for giving your time and your energy, sharing this experience, and doing what y'all are doing. This is what's needed. We really appreciate you. Like,
thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Got a chance. When I had children, I got a chance now. All right, ladies. Love y'all. And we'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
All right, that was dope. I appreciate y'all. Y'all know we be having these technical difficulties and whatnot, but that was super dope. Let me put their link tree back up there. Well, this is Hi Hello. This is their QR code for Hi Hello. Make sure you guys take these courses, buy that book. And if you're an educator or anybody that works in the school system, y'all need to hit these ladies up. Y'all need to bring them in, especially if you live in Macon. Y'all can say what y'all want. Y'all know y'all need them. So please call these sisters so they can help our babies. Okay, we be arguing back and forth on on social media about this stuff. We got the solution. So hit these ladies up, okay? So of course, guys, AMPspire interviews. We are looking for more amazing and more inspiring folks who got businesses, programs, and stories that need to be told. So make sure you hit us up at AMPspire Media Network. Get our email, ampspirecontent999@yahoo.com, or you can call us at 478-318-6933. Now, of course, you can find all of our content, AMPspire Media Network, on Roku television, $24.99 at Walmart. It's cheap to come and get this AMPspiration. Okay? So there is no excuses. We got Tell Truth Vision. We got our Soul Sister Therapy Childhood Trauma Podcast. We have Sundays with Spirit, and we also have Behind the Bar, produced by Banked Out Radio Show. Okay, so we're doing things, we're getting this content popping, so we want you all to be a part of it. And if you guys have a business, that you need advertisement for, we are looking for you. Okay, contact us. We have distribution and production rates. We have multiple shows and content to fit your advertising needs. All right, and content creators, if you need a home, holler at us. AMPspirecontent999@yahoo.com, 478-318-6933. All right. So I love y'all. Today has been an awesome day. We got some healing at 9. You know what I'm saying? We got focused our minds on education here in the afternoon. So we love y'all. We'll see y'all next time. And of course, always be inspired. Peace.